Is early access, or EA, just as bad as EA or Electronic Arts for sim racing? Well, that's difficult to tell. There has been quite a few models of early access in sim racing, some better, some worse, some never really pick up. With the release of Assetto Corsa Evo Early Access and its updates being in a very rough state, this could have implications going forward for the rest of the sim racing community. If, future titles decide to come with early access programs of their own, as we see now that the perceptions of early access in sim racing are starting to change. If you find these sim racing topics interesting, please leave a sub and press like, and don't forget to comment what you think of this topic. When it comes to sim racing, first impressions are everything. These games often cater to a very specific, detail-oriented audience, people who care deeply about tire models, force feedback, car handling dynamics, and track accuracy. When a sim racing title launches in early access, it's often not just unfinished, it's fundamentally incomplete in the ways that matter most to its audience. Physics may feel off, cars might have a behavior that are unrealistic, and crucial systems like force feedback or VR support or triple screens or AI or career modes might be missing or underdeveloped, and also that includes performance, FPS, and thereabouts. The problem is, sim racers are not your average casual players or gamers. They are typically experienced, vocal, and heavily invested in a genre. After all, it is really expensive, and there are systems that cost over 20,000 easy. So, if a game launches in early access with poor driving feel or rough online performance, or it doesn't really feel that good, performance is really bad, it immediately gets a reputation as not ready or not serious. It happens all the time. That reputation actually sticks, even if the game improves later. By the time the developers fine-tune the handling or polish whatever needs to be polished, much of the core audience may already moved on, or worse, actively discourage others from giving it a chance. This is where reputational damage starts to snowball. When updates are slow, or core issues like force feedback or tire behavior or whatever else remains unaddressed for too long, the community begins to lose faith. Players might assume the developers bit off more than they could chew, or worse, just wanted to cash in on the hype and move on. This perception of early access as money grab isn't really uncommon, especially in sim racing where expectations for authenticity are extremely high and tolerances for broken promises are quite low. Games like Assetto Corsa Competizione or Automobilista 2 have had to battle these perceptions, sometimes even for years and even until now, even if they have been steadily improved post-launch. The early access stigma sticks around for years, and you'll see YouTube comments, Steam reviews, and forum threads continue to echo old complaints long after the issues have been fixed. New players researching the title months later are often met with outdated, negative impressions that scare them off. That reputational scar can hurt sales, fracture the online player base, and ultimately determine and undermine the game's long-term viability. In this sense, early access can actually backfire towards the developers. What's meant to be a period for feedback and iterative development instead becomes a make-or-break moment. If developers get lukewarm or negative early experience, that can overshadow months or even years of updates. For a genre that relies a lot on trust and word of mouth and does have heavyweights that have been around for more than a decade now, that's really a major risk. Take for example Le Mans Ultimate. It has been, in this case, the absolute opposite of what Assetto Corsa Evo has been in terms of content. It had full content, all the cars for the 2023 season when it came out, but at the time it was released at the start, and even for a lot of months, the performance and stability was so poor that took them at least 8 months to fix their game, and took them 1 or 2 months after that to fix their reputation. And Rennsport is in a weird situation as well. A lot of money was invested on the esports side of it, but ignoring, of course, the possible sports washing and the accusations of stolen code, there wasn't really anything there to materialize. And even though if there is content now, let's assume that, will anyone care once all goodwill from the community is gone? So I'm gonna leave a question for the community for you guys to comment below. If a bear shits on the woods and there's no one there to see it, does it even matter? Once a sim racing title launches in early access, it's not just the physics or the engine or feature list that gets really judged. It's the developer's intent, real or perceived. In a genre as community-driven and tightly knit as sim racing, perception will be everything. If the player base senses that a title entered early access in an unfinished or, better, unstable state, especially if it carries a premium price tag or, even worse, DLC while in early access, they may start to view the entire project with skepticism, no matter if the early access is there and no matter if the developer's intent is actually true. It ends up being a little bit of an irony, doesn't it? Early access is supposed to build a community, but when the trust is broken early, it often ends up doing the exact opposite. It's going to damage the very relationship between the developer and the player base that is so essential in this niche. But we can also see it from the other side as well. For example, there's Project Motor Racing, Straight 4, which was before known as Slightly Mad Studios, once was a sort of pioneer of early access in sim racing via World of Massive Development that created massive problems that even Project Cars 2 couldn't get rid, at least in terms of perception. Now, they decide to launch with no early access whatsoever. Ironically enough, the issues created by WMD in the past have people say that they won't support this game exactly because of those issues in the relationship with the previous system, to the point they feel that they were scammed and they're not going to buy the game now. So yeah, early access done wrong or done incompletely or done in specific ways can damage you a lot. Therefore, we are in a situation in sim racing where early access seems to have made the sim racing community have a sour taste in their mouths. At least in the context and the way programs have been used thus far for its vast majority. It's not to say, though, that finished games are any better with or without early access. You got the examples of Gran Turismo 7, Forza, and EA WRC. Gran Turismo 7 took about a year to get good. Forza, it's still there, and the EA WRC in the beginning had a lot of performance issues, to the point that right now it was kind of killed by EA. And that kind of sucks. Or even you have situations with the Assetto Corsa Competizione that physics issues that were still present in 1.0 aren't being resolved now, and other physics issues created in 1.8, 1.9, and 1.10 are still there years later. This situation where issues are left unaddressed for years could be plenty of things. It could be development culture, it could be the difficulty of developing these titles because it's really not easy to get something as to develop a sim racing title with so many variables, or it could be something else, I don't know. Now, for my 2 cents, this is my opinion. In my opinion, early access has a place for sim racing, but it can't be a free-for-all type of environment where the buyer is a guinea pig for everything, nor an ad hoc focus group for development. Early access is a way to get feedback, early access feedback, or early feedback from development. Yes, it absolutely is the case. But it's at the same time not a get-out-of-jail-free card where the state of the product can't be criticized because it's just version 0.00235 and you've got this at 2/3 of the price and you don't understand what is going to happen because this is early access and you shouldn't be panicking or anything like that. Being a developer sucks, but $30 is still money for a lot of people, and being early access is not a shield. If anything, it needs to be subject to more attention. And I personally feel that updates in the early access program need to be meaningful, not just an iteration, a small movement there and then you change the number. The updates need to be meaningful. We need to feel that there's a large step being done, not in terms of adding cars and tracks, but in terms of features unlocked and development. So this way we actually feel the product being released before us almost into its full state. Not just a release or a small update that could have very much be just adding a couple of cars and tracks and minor fixes. It doesn't really work like that. The reason I say this is that we can't get into this gameplay or trial loop in early access that will be install the update, test the new content, leave the title alone until the next update comes, and in between the installing the update and leaving the update is 30 minutes. It has to give me a reason to interact with it. Otherwise, just spamming small updates and calling it a major point or a major update every so often will reduce the interest, because any improvement between updates will be so small to notice or even care about, and therefore it will have really the opposite impact on you. It's like Peter and the Wolf. The interest on the title going forward will essentially vanish even if you add something new. These are my 2 cents and my TED Talk. Let me know what you think about this in the comments.